But the good memories of my childhood, everything was overshadowed by my dad's violence. He was an angry man, prone to outbursts of temper and rage. A lot of those, you never knew what was going to happen to, or when it was going to happen. And the build-ups to my dad's episodes could last either an hour, a day, a week. You just never knew what was going to happen and who was going to get it. But there was always this powerful tension in our home, and everybody was walking on eggshells, and the unspoken rule was don't do anything to upset Dad. So many of those times, those blow-ups would come at dinner, and I remember being at the dinner table, and my dad would finally explode. He'd knock everything off the table, send our dinner and stuff smashing to the floor. Many times I was made to scrape the food up off the floor and eat it, and which you couldn't do as a kid, being terrified. I had to go sometimes and eat in the back room with the dog. We never knew what to do after those episodes. Everyone in my family would just cry and be scared and clean things up, but we never talked about it. And somehow, in my mind, I started thinking, if you just pretend it's not real, you don't talk about it, somehow that makes it better. I remember I took it all personal, and it deeply affected me. I really loved people in my family, and I couldn't understand why things were the way they were. I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I know at some point I just shut down and don't remember a lot of it. I experienced my first drug and alcohol when I was 11, almost 12, and right away I thought I'd found what I was looking for. It made me feel good. It made the fear go away, that intense fear that I always carried around in the pit of my stomach. And I also found out and felt good about myself when I was using drugs and alcohol. I jumped right into that lifestyle. By the time I was in the 9th grade, I was a daily user of either drugs or alcohol, and I would do whatever it took to get it. I would steal, shoplift, break into people's homes, take anything from anyone, and I started selling drugs too. By the time I graduated from high school, I was at the bottom of my class. I had no interest in life to do anything other than to stay drunk and stay high, and just to make things go away. Any fun or excitement or thrill I had once gotten from the drugs and alcohol was now just something I used to kind of blot out all the pain and problems in my life. Everything at my home had escalated to more craziness, more psychological, verbal, physical stuff. My younger sister was things had gotten so bad, she was sleeping with a knife under her pillow, just in fear of what was going on. My dad's intimidation had grown into threats of guns and suicide, and I really believed that he would one day kill us and then himself. The night of my last use, I again swore I would not do it again, and I ended up that night getting very drunk, using cocaine, was in a car crash. I'd been blacking out for quite some time, where I would lose large chunks of the evening and not remember how I got places. I woke up the next morning in complete despair, and I was at the end of my rope. And that was the day I called out to God that I had learned about as a child, and I talked to him throughout all my drinking and stuff. I always talked to him and wanted to be something better, but I just didn't know how. That night, I went to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I found out it's a 12-step program based on a relationship with God that helps you overcome your hurts, habits, and hang-ups. And I did whatever they told me. I was so afraid that I would go back out and not make it if I went back out to drinking and using. My life started to really change, and I haven't used drugs and alcohol now for 26 years, thanks to God and what He did in my life. I soon learned that even though the drugs and alcohol were gone, my problems ran a lot deeper, and so much of it was tied back into the things that had happened from when I was young. All the abuse and craziness in my house, it had really deeply affected how I saw the world and how I saw myself, and I started working on those things. It was I was in AA a little while, and that's where I met my wife, Karen, and it was a very romantic day that our eyes met across the smoke-filled AA room, and it was alcoholic love at first sight. She knew she had found her trophy husband, and we soon started dating, and I knew this was the person I loved and wanted to be with, so I did the right thing. I asked her if I could move into her apartment with her, and And you can imagine, we had 2 young recovering alcoholics. We had all kinds of things to work through. But we did, and we've been together. We'll celebrate our 25th anniversary next year. And just what God has done in my life with her and my family is more than I could have ever dreamt of or hoped for. I loved Alcoholics Anonymous and what it was doing in my life, and I was super involved, helped started meetings, spoke all over the place. After about 5 years, I started feeling like there was something more in life, that there was something that I was missing. And it was just around that time that someone invited us to church. Now, I had not been to church for a long time, and my only experience had been the Catholic Church. So when we went and they started talking about Jesus Christ as a real person and someone that you could have a relationship with, it was all new to me, but right from the beginning, it was something I knew I wanted. I felt what they were saying was so real, and I wanted it so bad. I didn't think it was for me, and I left so discouraged. I went home and told Karen, I'm never going back to church again. That's just too depressing, too discouraging. And I went out in the yard to do some yard work. It was then God, again, graciously intervened in my life, doing for me more than I ever deserved. But he spoke to me in a very real way, in a voice I heard that said, you need to go to church tonight. It was so loud and clear. I went inside and told Karen, we're going back to church tonight. We went that night and again heard the simple story about Jesus. I responded to that story at church by telling God and Christ, I want so badly what you have. I know I can't do it, but I need help. I went home that night and went to bed. And as I slept, I still don't know what God did in my life, but I woke up the next morning. I was a different person. Jesus Christ had done what the Bible says he'll do. He forgave me my sins. I felt for the first time in my life clean and whole and good. I mean, things looked different to me, smelled different. It was so dramatic, the freedom I felt. And the greatest thing that I experienced was the love of God. I knew in the deepest way I've ever known that God truly is my loving, perfect Father, and that he had loved me and loved me just the way I was through all the garbage. There was nothing I could have done or could do to earn his love, but he loved me just the way I was. By taking a real short walk from my house, I can go through a park and I can be on country roads where no one's around, and that's where I run in the mornings or walk, and it's where I talk to God. So I started not even thinking anything was really going to happen, but I just started walking and talking to God, and I said, God, if there's anger, if there's whatever, something in my life, just let me know it. I want to get this stuff out. I want to be free. That first morning I did that, I started talking to God about stuff I had seen and remembered in my home as a child that had happened to me or my brothers or my mom. That never been able to talk about or tell anyone. And in my house, it just wasn't safe to talk about your feelings or let people know you were angry or hurting. And I didn't even realize it was still all in there. But as I started talking to God, I found myself for an hour later exhausted and having just poured out all this stuff. I don't even curse anymore, and I was saying stuff that I wasn't even proud of, but what was so cool is God, the perfect Father, was so kind to allow me to just be real, let him know what was really going on, and just get it out. I did that for a couple weeks, and the end result was God helped me peel away and see that I was still carrying this idea in my mind that somehow I'd caused all of it, that if I'd been a better son, a better kid, if I had done something different, it would have stopped my dad's madness. But I was finally able to see that it was not me. It's not because I was damaged, or a bad person, or broken. I was just a kid caught up in a situation that was kind of out of my control, and it freed me. I knew at that moment God did something in my life. That's been over 6 months ago. Depression this cyclical depression that I've carried my whole life has been gone. God has done so many kind and wonderful things in my life that I don't deserve. And I have done so much in my drinking and using years that doesn't deserve kindness or forgiveness. Even though some stuff was done to me early on, there was a period where I did a lot of stuff that doesn't deserve forgiveness. I've worked hard to make those things right, but God is so gracious and quick to forgive. And it showed me more grace than really I've ever deserved. And all those, that as a child, one of my greatest hopes was just to have a happy family, a normal family. One of the greatest gifts God's given me is that, our family's not perfect, but Karen, Jess, Gabe, and I, our whole lives together, we've had a very close family, loving family. There's never been any of the violence, any of the craziness. We have our ups and downs like anyone, but God has given me that greatest gift of having that happy family of my own. I'm Brian Stone, and this is my story.